Alright, here is homework for day 1. Again, it's decomposing fractions. So there are just a couple of different ways that I showed. 1 6 plus 1 6 plus 2 6 plus 1 6, 2 6 plus 3 6, 4 6 plus 1 6, 2 6 plus 2 6 plus 1 6. Number 2, write an expanded form. I multiply each digit times its place value. 7 times 10, 8 times 1, 5 times 1/10, 2 times 1/100th, and 3 times 1,000. I would add all of those together and get 78 and 523 thousandths. I do the exact same thing but with fractions. My 5 would be times 1/10 as a fraction, 2 times 1/100th, and 3 times 1/1000th. Number 3, add 4 6 plus 5 6. I shaded in 4 6 here, 5 6 there, and I would get 9 6 or 1 3/6. And remember, I simplify and I get 1 1/2. Look for the patterns. If I divide 504 by 10, I would get 50 4/10. If I divide 504 divided by 1, I would get 504. If I divide it by 1/10, notice that I am dividing by a fraction of a whole, so this piece is going to get a lot larger because I'm not dividing it out by a whole, I'm dividing it out by a fraction of a whole. So I have 5,040. I'm dividing by a smaller fraction by 1/100th, so this is going to get even larger. I get 50,400. Notice the pattern. As the divisor becomes smaller, the quotient becomes larger. Why? Because I'm dividing a whole number or a larger number by a fraction of a whole. I'm going to add here 7/12 plus 10/12, and I get 17/12 or 1 5/12. Remember that all I'm doing is dividing. So if I had 12 on the outside as my divisor and 17 as my dividend, I can divide into that one time. I would get 5, so this becomes my numerator. My denominator is 12. My whole number is 1. So 1 5/12. Yes, it's equivalent because they're exactly the same, and I got the same sum. What is less? 479 29/100ths less than 801. I have a lot of regrouping here, students, so you need to make sure you pay attention. I had to go over here to borrow. As you know, there was nothing there. I could borrow here, so I was able to borrow, and that becomes a 9. That's a 10 after I regroup here. Okay, so now I'm left with a 0 here, and now I have to regroup again. I have to go over here and borrow. This one had to borrow here, so I regrouped again. This is 7, a 9, a 10, a 9, and a 10. Now I can subtract, and I get 321 71/100ths. Okay, how could I have changed that? I could have subtracted 2 here and made this 799. I still would have ended up regrouping, but I would have had to have added the 2 back to my difference once I finished subtracting. Okay, think about it. 603 divided by 5/10. I know that this number is going to get larger because I'm dividing by a decimal. My divisor is very small, so my pieces I'm going to have a lot more pieces. So I know that 5 times 12 would give me 60. So my best estimate would be 1,200. Think about, why is the quotient greater than the dividend? Okay, because this is a fraction of a piece. It's not a whole piece that I'm taking away from 603. I'm only taking 5/10. So how many 5/10 can I pull out of 603? That number is going to be very large. Okay, evaluate using order of operations. As I look, I have a subtraction, addition, multiplication, and subtraction. I know that multiplication will come first, so I multiplied first and I got 35. I rewrote my problem. My next step is going to be addition and subtraction, whichever comes first. Subtraction came first, so I subtracted, and I got 8, rewrote, 8 plus 35 minus 4, I get 43, I subtract 4, and I get 39. Okay? Are the answers the same? Yes. If I solve this in groupings first, I get my first grouping, which is 8 plus 7 times 5 minus 4. I rewrite 8 plus 35 minus 4. The same thing, I add first. 8 plus 35 gave me 43, minus 4 gave me 39. Yes, my groupings did not change my answer in this case. Okay, here I'm estimating by rounding to the nearest whole. Each one of these I rounded, and I got 6,363. I annexed zeros. Notice, students, that I stacked my numbers from largest to smallest so that I could make sure I lined my decimals up correctly, and I got 6,362 and 697 thousandths. Estimate the sum. Here it says to round to the nearest hundredths place. Once I look to my right, there's a 0, so my 100th's going to stay the same. My number in the hundredths place is going to stay the same. Everything else turns to 0. I got 1,000. This becomes rounded to the nearest hundredth. Since this is in the hundredths place, that becomes 700, and I got 300. A lot of regrouping here when doing an exact difference. I got 264 and 21 hundredths. Okay, using the grid to multiply, I have 48 hundredths here. That's a decimal. How can I regroup this or use distributive property? I take this number and I distribute it. I get 40 hundredths plus 8 hundredths would give me 48 hundredths, and I have 70 plus 2 would give me 72. I cross multiply and put my decimals in each box. I add up my answers together, lining my decimals up, and I got 34 and 56 hundredths. Okay, list all the factors of 27, 1, 27, 9, and 3, for 35, 1, 35, 7, and 5. My common factors are 1. I don't have any other common factors. Circle all the prime numbers. I have 2, 3, 5, 7, 27, 29, and 31. Remember, 1 and 0 are neither prime nor composite. Okay, for numbers 5 and 2300, I'm sorry, for day 4, I have 5 and 23 hundredths times 25. Notice, students, I have 2 decimal places here and I have 2 decimal places here, so my product is going to be the exact same. Look at the pattern. We do this on calendar every day. I know this was not a problem. I have 49,000, 4,900, 490. I get 49 thousandths, 49 hundredths, 4 and 9 tenths, 49. The product gets smaller too. Okay, here I took Jonathan's 16 push-ups makes 1 whole, but this is asking me to divide this one up into fourths. So if I shade in 3/4, how many push-ups did he do? I add each piece up and I get 12 push-ups. Okay, here I'm looking at a word problem, and it says that my book was late 24 days, 20 cents the first 10 days, 10 cents for each additional day. So I'm going to have to distribute this 24. 24 is going to be distributed as 10 for the first 10 days times 20 cents, and 14 for the remaining days that I had left times 10 cents. I multiply this side and I multiply this side. I get $2 plus $1.40. I add it together, and that gives me a total of $3.40. So it comes out cheaper for me to pay the fine than to buy another book for $5. Have a good evening.